Apotheosis Chapter 17. It was a very ordinary path. The path was paved with ordinary bluestone slabs and neatly planted grass on both sides of the path. However, the end of the path could not be seen. It stretched all the way to the foot of the mountain in the distance. Everyone participating in the sea test was full of confidence. Running was too easy for practitioners. Most of them felt that they would pass without a doubt. Following the white-bearded old man's command, the sea test officially began. The people standing at the front of the square were the first to run out. However, at this moment, a strange scene occurred. Many of the people who rushed out at the front felt their legs go soft. They directly sat on the ground, making a fool of themselves. Only a few people with extremely fast reflexes forcibly pulled themselves up when their legs went soft and continued to run forward. Seeing that the first batch of people who rushed out were at a disadvantage, the people behind naturally felt the strangeness of the path. They circulated all the strength in their bodies and did not make a fool of themselves. However, after most people stepped onto the path, their speed clearly slowed down a lot. It was as if they were carrying 1,000 G of gravity. It was very difficult to run. After the first few groups of people had stepped onto the path, it was finally Luo Zheng's turn. He slowly walked to the edge of the square and took a step out. The moment he took a step, he suddenly felt an invisible pressure. When he wanted to lift his foot again, he felt as if his legs were tied to 1,000 G of lead. It was incomparably heavy. This feeling was very strange. When Luo Zheng's entire body entered the path, he felt the pressure almost everywhere. Even his eardrums were under this pressure, rumbling. So that's how it is. This path looked ordinary, but it was actually filled with a powerful pressure. If he was running on flat ground, with Luo Zheng's viscera refining stage strength, his breathing was long and unceasing. As long as he had food to replenish his strength, he could run for 10 days and 10 nights. However, running under this 1,000 G of pressure was impossible. Under this kind of pressure, his strength would deplete too quickly. He did not know how long he could last. However, he had already lit up 2 dragon scales. In addition to his special physique, he might be able to achieve a good result. After calming his breathing, Luo Zheng let out a light shout and released all the strength in his body. It filled every muscle in his body and completely offset the pressure. Then he took a step forward and ran forward. In addition to Luo Zheng, there were also many people with strong qi. They got used to this strong pressure in an instant and moved forward with brisk steps as if they were lifting weights. It seemed that this pressure didn't cause any hindrance to them. Of course, most people would not be able to do so. Some of the bone-refining stage cultivators had already exhausted their strength after rushing forward for over 100 meters. Their entire body was prostrated on the ground. Even if they wanted to raise their heads, it was an extremely difficult matter. There were also some slightly stronger bone-refining stage martial artists who were barely holding on. Their bodies were on the verge of collapse, as if they would fall to the ground at any moment. After Luo Zheng ran for 7 or 8 miles, the crowd began to slowly disperse, forming a long line on the road. He concentrated on his steps and regulated his breathing. Only by doing so could his body reach the most balanced state and he could run further. Brother Luo Zheng. A voice rang out behind him. Luo Zheng turned his head and saw a youth wearing a silk robe greeting him. It was the youth Mo Can whom he had met yesterday. Yesterday, he was tightly wrapped in clothes. Today, he had changed into light clothes. Brother Mo Can, how are you? Luo Zheng responded with a smile. Mo Can panted as he ran. Brother Luo Zheng's strength is indeed outstanding. Even under such great pressure, it's as if you're taking a leisurely stroll. You're not bad either. If I'm not wrong, you're only in the bone refining stage, right? There aren't many people in the bone refining stage who can maintain your speed, Luo Zheng said. The road in front of them was extremely stressful for those in the bone refining stage. However, for those in the organ refining and marrow refining stages, it was still relatively easy. This Mo Can was actually able to maintain such a speed. He indeed had some skills. Mo Can's face revealed a depressed expression. He waved his hand and a bracelet appeared on his hand. Last time I participated in the C test, I was only able to run 200 meters before collapsing. This time, I relied on this Sky Network ring to offset most of the pressure. That's why I was able to run here. Sky Network ring? Luo Zheng glanced at the bracelet. It was a pure gold bracelet. It looked ordinary and mediocre, but it could actually help him withstand this pressure. This is a high-grade Xian artifact, right? Luo Zheng blinked his eyes and asked. Mo Can laughed mischievously and said, yes, for this high-grade Xian artifact, I spent 2 square crystals. It almost cost me everything. 2 square crystals. How could it be so cheap? Luo Zheng asked in bewilderment. If that was the case, then there were hundreds of square crystals in his Sumera ring. Wouldn't he be able to buy dozens of high-grade Xian artifacts? Hearing Luo Zheng's words, Mo Can added, you misunderstood. I rented this Sky Network ring. The 2 square crystals were the rent. I relied on this Sky Network ring to pass the C test. I still have to return it. Luo Zheng was suddenly speechless. He didn't expect that the disciples of the imperial capital's clans would come up with such a method to pass the C test. There were even people who rented Xian artifacts. Luo Zheng asked again, using the power of a Dharma artifact to help you pass the C test, isn't this considered cheating? The Blue Cloud sect held the C test to filter out the weak people. However, using a Dharma artifact made the C test very unfair. Mo Can laughed, Brother Luo Zheng, you don't know the rules of the Blue Cloud sect. In fact, the Blue Cloud sect is such a big sect and has so many disciples. How many geniuses are there? The people who participate in the C test are usually not in their eyes. They always turn a blind eye to these trivial matters. After all, we can't even be considered as outer sect disciples. Don't talk about using 1 or 2 Xian artifacts. Even if we fight here, as long as we don't kill anyone, generally no one will care. Hearing Mo Can's words, Luo Zheng understood. The Blue Cloud sect's extremely strict rules were presumably only targeted at the sect's disciples. Now, the C test was only a screening. Who cares if the fish and shrimps were mixed together, mud and sand were all mixed together. First, a rough screening would be carried out. After Mo Can finished speaking, he began to pant heavily. Relying on the Sky Network ring to offset most of the pressure, but he was, you'd better stop talking and concentrate on maintaining the pace of your running, Luo Zheng reminded him. Mo Can nodded. Gritting his teeth, he put in more effort to move forward. That kind face of his also revealed a ruthless expression. He was starting to give it his all. Up until now, Luo Zheng had been running very easily. After getting used to the pressure, he could even completely ignore it. The people on the road became more and more scattered. Luo Zheng looked around and realized that there was only him and Mo Can on this stretch of road. But Luo Zheng noticed that in the distance, there was a burly man who was actually advancing rapidly. That man's body was as strong as an ox. His strides were also large, and his running speed was extremely fast. Not long after, the burly man rapidly closed in on Mo Can. But in the instant that he overtook Mo Can, that burly man used his shoulder to fiercely ram into Mo Can. Mo Can was already on the verge of collapsing. He was concentrating on maintaining his pace. Relying on a bit of strength, he buried his head and ran like crazy. This time, the collision came too suddenly. What's more, Mo Can simply didn't notice that there was someone beside him. He immediately screamed and fell to the side of the road. What are you doing? Luo Zheng berated. Mo can and that burly man shouldn't have any enmity between them. This burly man had actually knocked Mo can down. This was clearly going too far. Before Luo Zheng's voice fell, that burly man's speed actually increased by 30%. He fiercely rammed into Luo Zheng. Seeing the burly man's ferocious momentum, Luo Zheng's expression changed. He calmly circulated all the strength in his body. A cold smile appeared on the burly man's face. According to the intelligence, this kid called Luo Zheng should only be in the viscera refining realm. But he was in the marrow refining realm. With a difference of one realm, he had an enormous advantage in both strength and body. This kid didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He actually didn't dodge. With this collision, wouldn't this kid's body be smashed to pieces? Thinking of this, the burly man's strength suddenly increased by 50%. But when the burly man rammed into Luo Zheng's body, his expression suddenly changed. He originally thought that under such a fierce collision, this kid would be like a sandbag, sent flying, his bones broken, and his life extinguished. But at this moment, he felt as if he had rammed into a mountain. Not only did the kid not move, but he suddenly exerted his strength and rammed back at him. The violent force bounced back from Luo Zheng's body. The burly man groaned and retreated 7 or 8 steps. His face was filled with shock, as if he had seen a ghost. How could this kid's body be so hard? It didn't seem like a human's body at all. It was as if his body was cast from steel and iron. Luo Zheng didn't care about the burly man's confusion. When he was rammed into, a warm current flowed from his shoulder, making his body feel incomparably comfortable. But when he saw Mo can standing to the side, he coldly asked, "I have no enmity with you. Why did you ram into me?" The burly man took out a purple pill from his chest and swallowed it. He laughed, "You have no enmity with me, but someone wants you to fail the C test." "Who is it?" Luo Zheng coldly asked. The burly man didn't answer. He sneered as he ran, "I advise you to give up early. You're doomed to fail the C test. Otherwise, this road will be the road to your death." Watching the burly man's rapidly receding figure, Luo Zheng revealed a dignified expression. The result wasn't hard to guess. He quickly figured out what was